who's actually going to get the most out of a 24-channel digital mixer like the Yamaha TF3, and who would be better off putting their money elsewhere? If you're the kind of person who's already juggling multiple mics, instruments, and playback decks on a weekly basis, the answer might be a clear yes. If you're just a hobbyist who only records a couple of acoustic tracks at home, you might wonder whether the price tag is really justified. And for anyone sitting on the fence, the big question is, does the TF3 deliver enough day-to-day value to make that investment feel safe? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's start with the hesitation most buyers feel. The first thing that trips people up is the sheer number of inputs and routing options. When you open the box, you're looking at a console that can take 48 separate sources, 40 mono inputs, 2 stereo line pairs, and a handful of return channels. That sounds like overkill until you picture a real gig, a small venue band with a drum kit, 2 keyboards, a guitarist with a mic, a vocalist, and perhaps a playback track for background ambience. All those signals need a place to land, and the TF3 gives you that without forcing you to patch everything through external routers. For a church worship team that runs a live stream every Sunday, the ability to plug in 4 combo mic/line inputs and 2 RCA stereo lines straight into the board means you can keep the signal chain short and stay out of the way of the worship leader. But that same flexibility can be a double-edged sword. If you've never worked with a console that offers 20 AUX buses and 8 DCA groups, the learning curve can feel steep. The TF3's touchscreen is helpful, yet you still have to remember which AUX is feeding the monitor mix versus the house mix, and the DCA rollout can be confusing if you're new to grouping. In practice, many users report spending a couple of rehearsals just getting the routing right before the first show. That's not a flaw in the hardware, it's a reality of buying a mixer that's built for more complex productions. If you're planning on using the board for a one-off event and don't want to invest the time to learn those layers, you might be better served by a simpler analog desk or a smaller digital unit with fewer buses. Now, let's talk about the hands-on experience, because that's where the TF3 really starts to earn its keep. The 25 motorized faders, one for each of the 24 channels plus a master fader, feel solid and move smoothly, which is a big deal when you're doing live mixes that require quick level tweaks. In a real-world scenario, imagine a live wedding band where the saxophonist steps up for a solo and you need to raise that channel by a few decibels on the fly. With a motorized fader, you can pull it up, let it ride, and then have the console remember the position for the next song. The same faders also provide visual feedback for the DCA groups, so you can see at a glance which sections of the mix are being attenuated without digging into menus. The compact footprint of the TF3 is another practical strength. It sits on a standard 2x4 rack or can be placed on a sturdy table, making it a good fit for venues that don't have a dedicated mixing rack. When you pair that with the built-in 40-channel mixer layout, you're essentially getting a full-size console in a footprint that most small to mid-sized venues can accommodate. That's why a lot of mobile DJs who travel to corporate events love it. They can set it up quickly, run multiple inputs from a portable PA, and still have enough headroom to add a couple of outboard effects if they need them. On the flip side, the TF3's built-in effects suite isn't as expansive as you'd find on higher-end Yamaha models or on some competitor units that market themselves as all-in-one. If you rely heavily on reverbs, delays, or multiband compressors during a live show, you'll probably end up routing an external processor into one of the return channels. That's not a deal-breaker, but it does mean you need to own or budget for that extra gear. For a church that already has a rack of effects, it integrates nicely. For a solo streamer who expects the console to cover everything, it could feel limiting. Pricing is the other major consideration. The TF3 sits in a price range that many small to mid-size venues see as a serious investment. The real value comes from the combination of channel count, motorized control, and the ability to save and recall scenes. In practice, this means you can program a rock band scene, a worship scene, and a conference scene, then pull them up with a single button press. That cuts down on setup time and reduces the chance of human error when you're switching between very different lineups. If you're the type of operator who runs the same space week after week with varying